thought I was done. No one wanted love songs anymore, but I couldn't stop writing them because they were my prayers. A low, soft spotlight glows across a grand piano. The frame is humble in form, yet draped in history. Enter the young boy from Tuskegee, a boy named Lionel Richie, silent in the corridors of his own home, but alive in the vibrations beneath his grandmother's keys. The air shifts. We see a patchwork of southern skies, the broad expanse of Alabama, and for a moment we sense that his story is not just about music, it's about transformation. From timid ear pressed to ivory, to voice raised among billions, this is the journey of a man who turned silence into song. The night of his breakthrough, small stage, flickering lights, van parked out back. The audience frozen as the shy teenage saxophonist turned vocalist played his heart. The 1984 Olympic stage, white suit, limitless stadium, his voice soaring, yet behind that moment, grief in the wings, a father fading, a dream ascending. The morning air in Tuskegee, Alabama was still. The kind of morning where silence felt thick as fog, wrapping itself around the modest house tied to the historic campus of the Tuskegee Institute. He was born there on June 20th, 1949, inside walls that held the legacy of Booker T. Washington and the dignity of generations. The world outside was restless with civil rights marches, but inside, young Lionel Brockman Richie Jr. sensed a different kind of tumult. A home of love, but not warmth, of lessons, not laughter. His father, Lionel Sr., kept order as a systems analyst in the U.S. Army. His mother, Alberta Foster, taught, later became principal, and taught duty. And at home, the piano in his grandmother Adelaide's living room spoke softly in Chopin and Gershwin, its vibrations reaching Lionel's ear like a heartbeat. My grandmother's piano was my safe place, he would later confess. In that room, he learned the strange new language. That sound could be feeling. As a boy, he witnessed the contradiction of his world. His parents pulled the curtains closed to the marches outside. The world demanded freedom, while his home preserved silence. Strength bound by caution. Pride shadowed by fear. That rhythm found shape in Lionel's life. He became an observer, confident at school, admired as a tennis player, yet misunderstood. A shy soul translating the hum of life into silent melody. Teachers called it talent. Classmates called it arrogance. What Lionel knew was that he feared saying the wrong thing in a world that punished the right words. At 18, a tennis scholarship brought him back to his birthplace, the Tuskegee Institute, only now as a young man searching for freedom, not approval. In the Crimson Pipers marching band, he shaped music not from notes he'd read, but from the memory of silence he'd borne. The boy who once pressed his ear to the piano was learning to make the world listen. In 1968, America was deep in upheaval. Lionel packed his dreams into a battered suitcase, boarded a van with a second-hand saxophone and a trembling voice. He and friends formed the band called the Commodores, ambition fierce, resources thin. They played in smoky bars with floorboards that stuck, air thick with beer and regret, often for tips, sometimes just for food. We were living on borrowed gas and borrowed time, Lionel would half laugh, half remember. On nights when stages emptied, the van became their home. The curtain, the only warm thing left. They crisscrossed the deep south, chasing voices of possibility. When Atlantic Records finally offered them a deal, it was no salvation. The executives wanted funk, not feeling. "Love songs don't sell anymore," one said. Lionel refused to mute his voice. At 23, he carried a coffee-stained notebook of lyrics about love, heartbreak, hope. "If nobody hears me," he wrote, At least I'll know I was honest. The 1970s were ruthless to dreamers like him. The Commodores played in the margins, counting tips that barely bought gas. He lived nights colder than hunger, held his saxophone, fingers trembling, wondering if sound had finally abandoned him. Yet through it all, he kept writing, humming motel air conditioners, scribbling on napkins and matchbooks. "I'll make people feel," he whispered, "even if I have to do it alone." Then came the night in the mid-70s. Backstage in a small venue, the lights cheap, the audience restless. Lionel sat alone, praying silently. Let them listen just once. Then he stepped into the light. He sang easy. The room froze. Even the waiters halted mid-tray. No one asked for noise. They yearned for truth. That night, the boy from Tuskegee who'd slept in vans and lived on borrowed hope made the world listen. Riches were still absent, but he had his sound. From that sound, he would construct eternity. The decade flew by. Success found him fast, brilliant, but also exacting. In 1982, he stepped away from the Commodores, embarked on a solo journey. His debut album, Lionel Richie, sold more than 4 million copies. In 1983, the album Can't Slow Down sold 20 million. Won Grammy after Grammy. A man who once couldn't afford guitar strings now gripped limousines, champagne, fame. But behind the glitter, he felt peeled open. Success was supposed to feel like freedom, he later admitted. Instead, it felt like a deadline that never slept. Then, in 1984, at the Olympic stage, he stood in white and lifted billions of hearts. What no one saw was his father's dying breath, his own trembling beneath the lights. That performance wasn't mere music. It was a man balanced on the summit, voice soaring while tears hovered unseen. In 1985, he co-wrote "We Are the World" with Michael Jackson, a global anthem. $60 million raised, hearts unified. The world called him a savior. He called it survival. "That line saved mine," he said, but his voice trembled. Years of overwork, strain, reflux, his throat cracked. Surgeries came, 4 attempts. "If we operate again, you might never sing," the surgeon warned. Lionel nodded, drove into silence so heavy it devoured the engine hum. At home, he sat at the piano his father had loved, tried to sing, but the sound was alien, cracked, ghostly. He thought God had stopped answering. Late nights bled into dawns. He avoided calls, doors. The question, "How are you?" felt impossible to answer. Then a holistic doctor asked, "Do you eat before bed?" That question changed everything. The culprit wasn't simply chords. It was acid reflux destroying his gift. No more food after 8. No coffee. He walked at sunrise, drank tea, whispered to himself. He began with whispers, hummed, then notes trembling like a wounded bird. His voice returned, patient, fragile, wise. His father passed. At the funeral, Lionel sang softly, not for crowd, but for himself. He learned that silence can be sacred. 7 years passed before he recorded again. In 1996, his album Louder Than Words emerged. No longer a superstar chasing charts, but a man grateful for sound itself. And love, oh love. His first marriage with Brenda Harvey began in a small sunlit kitchen, rice and beans dinners, laughter and prayers. They married in 1975, believing love could outsing poverty. Then success came. Grammy after Grammy, globe-trotting, spotlight blazing. But fame, the thief, stole quietly the moments in that kitchen. The air in Beverly Hills one summer night in 1988 felt heavy with stillness. Brenda drove to find the door unlocked. Inside sat Lionel and Diane Alexander. Time halted. She didn't yell. She witnessed. And the years, the promises, the letters, the whispers, they all slipped away. The divorce finalized in 1993. No court battles, just two people signing the end of what once promised forever. Lionel said, "I was singing to millions, but I came home to silence." For Brenda, dignity remained even as pain became public. "She taught me what love really is," he said. "Not the kind that shouts, but the kind that stays, even after it's gone." And the second marriage, with Diane, they married in 1995. Their son Miles, daughter Sophia. For a while, love seemed healing. But the road called again. Endless flights, cameras, nights he wasn't home. No betrayal, just absence. In 2004, divorce again. He wrote later, "I paid for my mistakes twice, once with my heart and once with my wallet." The house echoed as two small pairs of shoes sat by the door, waiting for a father who couldn't stay. He told Sophia, "Mommy's not mad, she just needs space." But he knew the truth. He didn't know how to make room. He sat at the same piano Diane had loved, fingers hovering, not daring to play. Then one day he realized, love isn't endless, but its echo is. Then peace arrived in a way he never saw coming. In 2014, at a dinner party in Los Angeles, he met Lisa Parigi, a Swiss-born model and entrepreneur, 40 years younger, ageless in grace. She didn't ask about his fame. She asked, "Do you still dream?" He said later, she saw the man who still believed in love, even after it had broken him twice. 11 years later, they were still together. No marriage, just mornings of peace. Her presence taught him rest isn't quitting, it's recovery. He stopped eating after 8 p.m., cut coffee, replaced chaos with sunrise. He planted roses because he liked watching something grow without needing anything in return. Yet his ghosts never left. Sometimes late at night he'd sit at the piano, Lisa beside him, listening to the echoes of Brenda's laughter, Diane's silence, his children's footsteps. He told People magazine, "You can't erase your past, but if you're lucky, you find someone who helps you live with it and even smile at it." Now at 76, Lionel stands as a man who learned to dance in the rain. The 13,000-square-foot Italian-style villa in Beverly Hills isn't just luxury, it's sanctuary. Gold records and framed lyrics line the walls, but by his side is garden, silence, soft jazz at dusk. He earns still from royalties, still mentors on American Idol, still chooses simplicity when he could choose extravagance. He gives quietly, scholarships at Tuskegee, hospital bills for fans, instruments for schools. Giving is just another form of music, he says. Yet even now his body reminds him of war, acid reflux controlled, surgeries behind him. His voice isn't what it was, but his soul sings louder now. He often visits the piano and plays softly. "This one's for you, Pop." His smile remains, but his eyes carry quiet fatigue of one who knows that blessings are fragile. He no longer chases applause. He collects moments, the laughter of grandchildren, the hum of a familiar melody at twilight. He has turned survival into art, wealth into wisdom, pain into peace. The man who once sang easy has spent his life discovering that nothing about greatness ever is easy. And as the sun sets over Beverly Hills, you'll find him at his piano. Lisa beside him, the garden in bloom outside. No cameras, no roar, just two people, one song, and a lifetime spent learning how to play it. If you've ever felt broken, unheard, or uncertain, remember this story. Remember a boy from Tuskegee who pressed his ear to a piano and learned that silence could speak. A legend who turned heartbreak into harmony. If his journey touched something inside you, like this video, subscribe for more stories of resilience and grace, and share this tribute, not for fame, but for the voice that taught us all to listen.